My name's Kevin. I'm a cardiac arrest survivor. My cardiac arrest happened November 26th of 2010, about 9 years ago. I was officiating a girls' hockey game in the Twin Cities when I went down with a cardiac arrest. The last thing I remember, I felt a little dizzy, and I thought I put out my hand to catch my fall, but everybody that was there that night said that never happened. I just caught my fall with my nose. So I was very fortunate that there was a paramedic there for the hockey tournament, a doctor who had a daughter playing in the game that came running out of the stands to help, and we had access to an AED. I was dead for about 8.5 minutes while they did CPR on me, and I was fortunate enough to be able to talk to both the doctor and the paramedic after this happened. They kind of filled me in on what happened during that 8.5 minutes that I was out or dead. So the paramedic saw me go down. He went running out onto the ice, rolled me over, saw that I was starting to turn blue, and knew that I was in serious trouble. So he started chest compressions right away. The doctor recognized what was going on and came running out of the stands to help. And as he was running down the stands, he turned around and yelled at one of the other parents to go get the AED out of the arena office. So the doctor and the paramedic traded off doing chest compressions on me while they waited for the AED to arrive. The AED got down to the ice level. They opened it up and looked at it, and the doctor said, "Well, where are the electrodes?" This AED was in two identical boxes sitting right next to each other on the floor of the arena office. So they had to send somebody running back up to the office to retrieve the second box. And in the meantime, the doctor and the paramedic got in an argument. The paramedic wanted to move me off the ice because he didn't like the crowd of people that were gathering around. And the doctor said, "No, we're not moving him until we have an outcome." I'm glad that the doctor won that argument, or I might not be here today. But the second box got down to the ice level. They opened it up, put the electrodes on me, plugged it into the AED. It said to deliver a shock. They delivered the first shock and then started in on chest compressions again. And the doctor had his hand on the inside of my thigh, and he felt the first pulse come through really strongly. And he told the paramedic to just stop and watch. And as they watched, the color started to slowly come back into my body, in through my face. My eyes fluttered open. The next thing I remember, there was a lady with really warm hands holding my hand that said, "Welcome back, Kevin." That happened the Friday after Thanksgiving in 2010. They took me into the hospital that night. I didn't realize that there was a difference between a heart attack and a cardiac arrest until I was in the bed in the emergency room. And I saw this emergency room nurse coming at me with a syringe that looked like it was about this big. And I said, whoa, wait a minute, what's that? I said, "Is that some kind of clot-busting drug?" And he said, "No, why would you need that?" I said, "Well, didn't I have a heart attack?" He goes, "No, you had a cardiac arrest. That's something completely different." Up until that point, I didn't know that there was a difference between a heart attack and a cardiac arrest. So this happened the Friday after Thanksgiving. Saturday morning, they did an angiogram, found some blocked cardiac arteries. Sunday morning, they put in 3 stents. By noon on Monday, I was out of the hospital. By Wednesday of that week, I was walking around the mall with my wife. And by the 20th of December, I was back on the ice officiating hockey again. And one of the things that I think kind of helped me to recover a little bit faster is I made a couple of promises to myself when I was laying there in that hospital bed. And one of them was that I wanted to get back on the ice with both of those teams as quickly as I possibly could to prove to the girls that I survived. And I was able to do that. And the other thing I wanted to do was to try and find a way to create more survivors like myself. So that's the biggest reason why I teach CPR at the corporate level, is to try and prepare people to deal with these kinds of emergencies so that they know what to do, they know where the AEDs are located, and they start becoming a little bit more aware of not only cardiac arrest, but just their general surroundings, where AEDs are located as they're walking through a building, things like that, so that they start to tune in a little bit more to some of these kinds of things and try and help build a little bit more support for CPR and make sure that people understand what they need to do in an emergency. None whatsoever, and even now, I'm still amazed at the wide disparity of survivors' experiences as I read about them. And some of these people are really struggling. And, it just goes back to how fortunate I was to have somebody there to start CPR as quickly as they did on me. And, one of the more promising therapies for cardiac arrest victims is cryotherapy. And, here I was laying on a 185 by 85 foot ice cube with no shirt on. That's cryotherapy as quickly as you can get it when it happens. So I think those kind of things really contributed to the fact that I made it through this experience. I didn't have any permanent heart damage. I don't have an implantable defibrillator. My ejection fraction coming out of this event was right where it needed to be. When I started looking at the wide spectrum of survivors' experiences, I got a lot of empathy for these people because they're going through things that I really didn't have to go through. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is just to try and learn a little bit more about some of those experiences. That's a great question because, I have some pretty strong opinions about that. And, that's another reason why I wanted to come to this, was to get the opportunity to talk to the people from the American Heart Association and also the Red Cross, because I think that, we're missing out on some opportunities here, and we're missing out on the opportunity to reach deeper into the community and teach hands-only CPR, because the bystanders are really the first link in this chain of survival. And if we can't get bystanders willing to act and act in it properly in an emergency, the cardiac arrest victim has very little chance of survival. So that's where my focus is, and that's where I think at times the American Heart Association and the Red Cross are kind of missing the boat. We really need to push that bystander CPR and hands-only CPR a little bit more strongly so that everybody knows how to do it. It can be taught very quickly in 10 minutes. And, as a survivors group in Minnesota, we've made some inroads at the state level, and we got CPR added as a graduation requirement for all people graduating from high school now. So they have to prove proficiency in CPR. And that's one step, but we have to reach deeper into the community and take every opportunity we have to try and reach people. From what I've been able to read, there's two pieces to increasing the number of survivors. One is widespread CPR training, so everybody needs to do it, and the other one is more public access defibrillators. And right now, I think for the second part of it, getting more AEDs out there, it's a little cost prohibitive. So we need to find a way to get more people more access to AEDs. They're in most public buildings and certainly in shopping malls. And I know the building that I work in, there's probably 30 of them. But a lot of companies aren't quite as progressive as maybe Cargill is in that regard and haven't jumped on the AED bandwagon. But the truth is that they save lives. They've saved lives for our company. They've saved lives in our building. So there's no reason not to put them out there. I'm just a huge proponent for hands-only CPR and getting more people to take CPR training in whatever form it happens to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 4-hour certification class. It can be a 2-hour class or a 1-hour class. And really that's one of the directions that I'd like to see both the AHA and the Red Cross go in, is to shorten up those classes. Particularly in a business environment like I work in, a corporate environment, it's tough to take people away from their job for a 4-hour time block to get them certified. But we could be just as effective, maybe more effective, if we did it in 1-hour increments and simplified it a little bit so that it can be taught that way. And there's no reason why it can't be. We just have to develop the mindset that this is something that we need to do. This is a health risk throughout the country, and we really need to tackle it.